I'll move forward from here. I'll move forward from the concept of an interface. I told you that this is the interface bank. Okay, we can create this interface, right? Whatever classes will implement this interface will have the same set of functions. Okay, so Citibank is a class which implements the bank interface, and HSBC Bank is a class which implements the bank interface. So both of them would have the same set of functions in them. Okay, right. So I hope you got my point, what I'm trying to convey out here. Right. Now, moving ahead, right, I'll create a new Java project and I'll call it day 2. Fine. And hold on. I'll include the Selenium jars and all. Let me include those because you need to make the project Selenium enabled. So I'll include Selenium jars and also bank, Citibank, HSBC Bank. Also these classes out here. Fine. I'll include these classes. This is the interface bank. Fine. And this is Citibank and this is HSBC Bank. Fine. Both the classes, they implement the bank interface. All right. Fine. So whatever functions will be there in this class would be implemented out here. Okay. So yesterday I talked about various drivers. I told you that there is Chrome driver. Fine. There is iDriver. All right. Hold on. I'll just go to the website seleniumhq.org, and yesterday I clearly defined that in the documentation. Fine. WebDriver is an interface. Fine. And all the driver classes, they are implementing that interface. So all the functions in the classes would be coming up from the WebDriver interface. So whether it is Chrome driver or Firefox driver. Hello? Hello?
Your voice is again breaking.
Voice is breaking. Actually, the thing is, it's raining out here, so that's why the net's giving a problem. Uh, 2 minutes. Actually, my network connection is nice, but it's raining out here. Okay, give me 2 minutes. Let me check my network. Okay, let me check my network. So yesterday I told you that all the driver classes, they are implementing the WebDriver interface. So all of them will have the same set of functions. So you really don't have to worry that what type of, like, you really don't have to learn all the drivers separately. Okay, fine. I hope my voice is okay now. Fine. If you find it to be breaking, just let me know. Fine. So now out here, if I make a class, right? Suppose I make a new class. Fine. Gmail.java. My objective out here in gmail.java is to go to Gmail. Fine. And say login. Okay. And I want to execute this on all the 3 drivers, Chrome, IE and Firefox. Okay. Right. So how will I do that? Fine. Okay. If I write over here, say Firefox driver, say Firefox driver fd equals to new Firefox driver. Okay. Right. We suppose we have a variable known as browser. equals to, I'll equate it to Mozilla, for example. So tomorrow if I change this browser to say I or Chrome, the script should be executing on the corresponding browser, I or Chrome. Fine. So you have to make a dynamic kind of a code over here which will work on all the browsers. Right. So as common sense says that you can put an if statement that if the browser is equal to say Mozilla, then create the object of Firefox driver. Fine. Else if the browser equals to Chrome, fine. Right. Then create the object of Chrome driver. Okay, like this, the way we did yesterday. Okay. Else if the browser is I, fine. The way we did yesterday, you can create the object of I driver. Okay, right. But how will you do the testing? I cannot just write all the code over here. I cannot write a Firefox driver dot get say http gmail.com and write the code over here to log in into Gmail. And similarly for Chrome, I'll have to write say Chrome driver dot get, right, and then log in. And then for I'll have to write I dot get to this website. Get function is same in all the three driver classes, but the object which will call the function, okay, correspondingly that browser would have the command executed on it. Fine. Okay. So look, I am not online on Skype. You can use WebEx to ask your questions because of some network issue. Fine. So the thing is, Firefox, this thing is not going to work. We have to have some other different kind of mechanism, right, wherein I can actually open the browser dynamically. All right, this is not the proper solution. Fine. So again, interfaces, they come into the play and they help us out. Fine. For example, like yesterday I had the bank interface and Citibank and HSBC Bank were implementing the interface. Okay. I'll make a new class. Fine. And I'll call that class as say test bank. Fine. So right now over here, if I create the object of HSBC Bank, fine, I can call the functions deposit, the ones which are there in the interface, deposit and issue interest. Okay, so I can call both the functions from here. Right. Similarly, Citibank, okay, I can call both the functions. Fine. So when I run this code, it executes and it simply prints HSBC depositing, HSBC issuing interest, and similarly for Citibank, which is very good, which is what we are expecting. But suppose Citibank, it says that, okay, I hope my voice is okay and it's not breaking and everybody is comfortable with it. Fine. Right. So now Citibank, suppose it says that it offers one more service which is not offered by any other bank. Right. Say public void, say invest, something like this. So invest is a function, right, which is only offered by Citibank services, but not by the other banks. Okay, invest function is not coming up from the bank interface in this particular class. All right, fine. So in test bank, I can call the function with the Citibank object. I can write c dot invest. Not obvious with HSBC because this will not work because investment is only. Is my voice like? Right, so out here, this investment feature is only provided by Citibank, right? Investment feature is not provided by any other bank. Fine. Okay. Now listen to this carefully. Out here, many people they get confused. Till now, I was creating the object like this. Right now, if I create the object like bank B equals to new HSBC bank or new Citibank, this is a different way of creating the object. Out here, this is the interface reference which I am equating to the object of the bank. Fine, it is something like object of implementing class. The interface reference I am pointing towards the class which is implementing the interface. Okay, right. So how is it different from this? Okay, how is this line different from this line? All right. So data never comes up from interface, Kiran. Okay. So if I write B dot say deposit, I can do it. If I write B dot issue interest, I can do it. But if I write B dot invest, I will not have access to this function. If I create the object like this, then with B you can access the functions which are there in the bank interface but implemented in Citibank, not the own functions of Citibank. Okay, with B you can only access the functions which are coming from the bank interface to Citibank. But how is this helpful? What do you get object like this? Okay, when do you use like this? When do you use like this? How is the second way helpful? All right, look, the thing is, if I have to dynamically move my object, okay, now bank B is pointing towards Citibank. Okay, hold on. I will put a demarcation line and run the code. So it will give me an output like this: Citibank deposit, Citibank issue interest. Now I can make B dynamically point towards HSBC bank as well. So I can make B point towards Citibank, or I can make B point to HSBC bank. Fine, the same reference. Fine, if I write over here B dot deposit dot issue interest. Fine, so next time it will print for HSBC. Okay, so B can move towards the object. I can write over here say bank X equals to null. That means X is not pointing anywhere. X is not pointing towards any particular object. Fine, but on the next line it is completely up to me. Hold on, I can write out here X equals to new say Citibank. Okay, or I can also write X equals to new HSBC Bank. So it's completely my decision. Fine. Okay. So you can also do it the same way in Selenium. In Selenium, we know that WebDriver is the interface. Fine. And all the other driver classes, right, like Chrome driver, iDriver, Firefox driver, HTML unit driver, Opera driver, all the driver classes, they are implementing this WebDriver interface. Okay, so I can create object like this as well. I can write WebDriver dr equals to new Firefox driver. And on the next line, if I want to make dr point towards new Chrome driver, I can also make dr point towards new Chrome driver. Same reference can move from one driver instance to another driver instance. So this helps a lot. Okay, going back to gmail.com, fine. Over here I had told the browser is Mozilla, so I was creating the objects like this. So you don't have to create the objects like this. Okay, right. All you need to do is you need to declare your WebDriver instance driver to null. And based on the type of browser you want to open, you can instantiate that particular driver, Firefox driver, or out here driver equals to new Chrome driver, or out here driver equals to new Internet Explorer. It is up to your discretion. Fine. You can make the driver point towards null and open it accordingly. So if I am writing Mozilla over here, and out here you can write the regular code. You can write driver dot get, say the website http gmail.com, and all the other commands. All the commands would be the same because all the three driver classes, they are coming up from the WebDriver interface. So the commands would be the same. Fine. So when I run this, it will open Mozilla. And it will take Mozilla to Gmail. Fine. And similarly, if I put Chrome and if I run it, so it will now open Chrome and take Chrome to Gmail. Fine. Okay. So this is how you can dynamically write the code. Right. So now you will have to go to the website gmail.com, and over there you can actually write the code which will probably log you in. Now how do you write the code? Okay, how do you identify elements on Gmail and you automate them or you interact with them? Fine. So let's come over to the concept of object identification. Fine. What are objects? Fine. Anything on a web page, technically in automation is known as an object. Fine. For example, this is a web page. This link is an object. This text is an object. Even the page is an object. Okay, everything is known as an object. Fine. So how do you identify elements? How do you interact with them? Right. To do that, the first thing which you need to do is you need to hold on. You need to go to Google and in Mozilla, I'm telling you the first thing how to identify in Mozilla. Okay, let's talk about Mozilla. Later on, we'll look at Chrome and IE. There is a plugin in Mozilla which helps you to investigate the page source. Fine. Selenium is a tool which works on the page source. It reads the page source, it reads the elements inside the page source, and that's how it works. Okay, so you have to analyze this page source for any website. Say if I go to msn.com, fine, you have to right click and view the page source. Okay, this is HTML language. Spend 5 minutes on any HTML tutorial, you will come to know. Fine. HTML is nothing but in HTML you have tags and attributes. Fine. For example, out here button is a tag. Okay, type and ID are the attributes with that tag. Fine. Li is a tag, ID is an attribute with it. Fine. So in HTML you have got tags. Whatever starts with a conical bracket, right? It is a tag. And after that you may have 0 or more than one attributes. Okay, it can be 0, 1, 2, 3, any number of attributes with a particular tag. Okay, so you need to first understand the tags and the attributes. To understand that, you have to first learn to manage the page source in a more professional way. Okay, you can go to Google and over there you will find hold on, just type Firebug, Firefox, Firebug. Okay, Firebug is add-on inside Mozilla. Many of you must be knowing about that. Okay, open this link and you need to install Firebug in Mozilla. Make sure you open the link inside Firefox. Okay, and click on the button add to Firefox. Okay, right. If you have an older version of Firefox, you can try out the older versions of Firebug. Okay, right. And it will be installed as an add-on in Firebug in your Firefox. You will see an icon out here. You see this icon? You see this icon. When you click on it, a screen like this will come up. Fine. In the HTML tab, you will have the HTML source code. Fine. Over here, you'll have an arrow icon. Fine. Look out here, this arrow icon. If I click on this arrow icon and if I move it over the screen anywhere on the screen, fine, I will get the page source of that particular element. Fine, you move this arrow onto any element and you will get the page source of that element. So this will help us a lot. Okay, this Firebug will help us a lot. How do you investigate the page source in IE or how do you investigate in Chrome? We look at that, but the primary thing which you need to understand is that page source remains the same across all the browsers. Okay, it's not that if I open up a website, fine, if I open say gmail.com in Mozilla, the page source will be different and in Chrome will be different and in IE will be different. No, the page source is always the same. If you investigate the object on one browser, you can easily use the object on other browsers as well. Okay, right. So moving ahead, fine. Moving ahead, what I'll do is that under day 2, just a minute. I'll create an Excel file. Okay, where we will categorize the objects and we'll see how they are made. And okay, just hold on. I'll make columns over here. Object, tag name. I told you every object has a tag name. Mandatory attributes. Hold on, you'll come to know what I'm talking about, right? And optional attributes. Okay, so every object, we'll identify all the types of objects in HTML. What are the different types of objects you have in HTML? Okay, you have an input field, right? Then you have got radio buttons, you have got checkboxes, right? Input field, or you can call it a text field. You have button, okay, the button on which you can click. You have links, you have a drop list, you have a regular text on the page, fine, a normal text, okay. You have images, fine. So these are the most prominent elements which we see on any web page. There are others as well, those are hidden, like web tables, and there are lots of other things, frames. I'll not talk about them, but the ones which are regularly visible to us. Okay, everybody must be knowing about these objects. Okay, so now we will be writing the code which will help us in identifying the elements, but before that we need to understand for these objects, okay, what is the tag name, mandatory attributes, and all that stuff. Okay, right. For example, if I look at the Gmail page only, okay, or any web page, fine. If I go to msn.com, fine. There is a top text field over here. Okay, a text field, please note, will always will be having the tag name as input. Okay, it'll always be the case, right? If I look at this web search is a button, fine. Button has the tag name button. So a button, okay, has a tag name button, but it sometimes also has got a tag name input. For example, if you look at the Gmail field, okay, the text field over here has the tag name input, but the next is a button. Okay, it's got the tag name input as well. So for a button, there can be two tag names. Sometimes it can be a button or input. Okay, for a checkbox. Okay, for a checkbox, I don't have an option over here. Hold on just a minute. Do you have a checkbox here? No. I know that, like I'll tell you from my experience, radio buttons and checkboxes also have the tag name as input. So the tag name for text field, radio, checkbox, or a button can be same, it can be input, but there is a mandatory attribute which you will always find. In text field, there will be an attribute type whose value would be equal to text. For a radio button, the type would be equals to radio. Okay, for a checkbox, type would be equal to checkbox, and for a button, type would be equal to submit. So this type attribute will always be present. Okay, and it will always like point towards a specific type of parameter for that particular element. Okay, right. For a link, the tag name is always a anchor tag. If you check any link on any web page, right? A link will have a tag name A anchor. On Gmail page as well, if you look at any link, for example, I look at the link need help, it's a link anchor tag, and link will always have an attribute known as href. This attribute will point towards the URL which will open when you click on the link. Okay, so href is a mandatory attribute for a link. This attribute contains the URL which will open, right? A hyperlink, yeah, with the URL which will open when you click on the link. Fine. A drop list. A drop list, like in Gmail, this is a drop list. Okay, it's at the bottom of the page. Fine. A drop list, if you investigate it, has the tag name select tag. Okay, it's got no attribute, no mandatory attribute. If you expand this select tag, you will find the various option tags inside the select tag. Each option tag holds the value which is present in the list. Okay, so basically the tag name for a drop list is select tag. In case of a text, okay, text, I mean the regular visible text on a web page. Fine. Well, you cannot categorize into any tag. Sometimes it is in a slave, sometimes para. Okay, so you cannot. There can be many tags for this. You cannot specify. You cannot generalize the text. Okay, images. Fine. If you look at images, for example, this is the Google image on the top. Fine. If I investigate this, just a minute. Okay, it's not coming. Hold on. Over here in MSN, just a minute. See, this is, yeah. If you look at this pic, fine. This is an image. Right, this pic is an image. The tag name is img. Fine. An image will always have the tag name img, and there would be an attribute known as source. The source attribute will point towards the URL from which this image is loading. Okay, source attribute will always point towards the URL from which this image is loading. So for an image, the tag name is img and the mandatory attribute is source src. It holds the URL from which the image is coming up. Okay, so these are the objects, the tag names and the mandatory attributes which will always be present. Okay, now there are some optional attributes. Okay, for example, if you look at the next button out here, okay, this is the next button. All right, you have the name of this button as sign in. So name is an attribute. It is an optional attribute, but it is present with the button. ID is next. So if you have name or ID, okay, or class, these are the optional attributes. Okay, ID, name, class. These are the most regularly occurring optional attributes. There can be many others, but ID, name or class can be present or they might not be present with an element. Okay, but if they are present, it becomes easy to identify with Selenium. Okay, so if these attributes are present, okay, it will make our work very easy. But if they are not present, then it becomes a little tough, but there are ways to come along, right? For example, if I look at the text over here, one account all of Google. This is a text. It's got the tag name h1. There is no ID or anything for this. So recognizing this with Selenium would be tough, but to recognize this text field which has the ID email will be easy. Generally, ID and name, they are unique. Okay, the concept of ID or name is to make sure that the object is uniquely defined on the page, right? Generally, the developer, he gives a unique ID or a name. If he has not given a unique ID or a name, many elements on the page have the same ID or name. You should actually ask developers to correct that, because the concept of ID is itself, it's something which is the identification property of that object. Okay, it should be unique. Class, I agree, many objects on the page can have the same class. Class, you cannot say defines the objects uniquely. Okay, class can be different, but ID or name, right? Sorry, class can be same for many objects, but ID or name are supposed to be unique. All right. So now, how do you write the code in Selenium to identify the elements? Okay, how do you write the code? This is fine. This is okay. Okay, I always teach this to students initially, right? So that they have a little background about HTML. Fine, you will have tags and attributes. Fine. Now, if I move forward with this Gmail example, I want to go to Gmail, and if I want to type my username, fine. Then if you look at the Java documentation, fine. First of all, let me tell you how to import the Java documentation into Eclipse, because every time we cannot just go to seleniumhq.org and open the Java docs from there, right? I'll tell you how to import them into Eclipse. Fine. After you have clicked on the Java doc link, fine. Right. After you have clicked on the Java doc link, copy the URL. Fine. Copy the URL and you can go to your project properties. Okay. Right. And go to Java build paths and libraries, the place where you have all the jar files. Okay. When you import the jar files, they reflect out here, right? Okay. This is the place where you are having all the jar files, right? Okay, so what I'll do is, there is the main jar file. Yeah, Selenium Java 2.47.1 jar. This is the main jar file. Okay, you click on the Java doc location. Fine, edit it and paste the URL over here which you had copied, and make sure you remove index.html from the end. Just paste this much of the URL. I'll give you the URL on chat as well. Fine. And click on OK and OK, and that's it. Right. Now if I move my mouse, say, over WebDriver, okay, I'll get the details about the WebDriver interface. If I click on any of the links over here, the Java docs will open within Eclipse. Okay, you can switch over to the frames view and you will get the documentation, the one which you are opening in the browser, which is there inside Eclipse. So it's very helpful. Okay, so you have the WebDriver interface. Fine. Inside it, you will see a function known as find element. Find element function will go and find an element on the web page. Okay. Right. If you look at the code, then you can fire the function driver.findElement. Okay. Look, this find element function would be there inside all the driver classes because all the drivers are implementing the WebDriver interface. Okay, but how do I find the element and what does this function returns me back? Okay, this function returns you the reference of a web element interface. Web element is an interface in Selenium. Okay, it actually it actually represents a generic HTML element, whether it is a link or button or input field, all the elements which we just discussed in the Excel file. Okay, it represents that element. Guys, please keep your mic on mute. If you have any questions, you can ask me, but just keep it on mute after that. Right. So, web element is an interface which represents a generic HTML element on the web page. Okay, right. And it's got functions which can be fired on any element. For example, click, clear, get the location of the element, get the size, get the text, whether the element is displayed, is enabled. Fine. So it's got generic functions. Alright. So in my gmail.java, if I write.
Yeah, Akit, I am having one question. Web element is itself an interface, and as per my understanding, for interface we are not supposed to create any object. So how the web
we are not creating an object over here. Okay, we are, hold on, returning the reference of web element interface. Over here, if you look at my earlier test bank, I was having bank B equals to new city bank. This is the reference of interface. It's not the object. Okay, so web element email equals to driver.find. Maybe internally this find element function is creating the object of one of the classes which is implementing the web element interface and returning you back. We don't know the implementation of this function. Are you getting my point?
Got it. Thank you.
Right, yeah. So driver.find element will return you the web element representing the email field, but with which criteria you have to find the element. Okay, this is known as locator strategies. Okay, what kind of strategy would you use to identify the email field? Look, again, if you look at the documentation, fine, hold on. Just a minute. Yeah, WebDriver interface and find element function. Okay, find element function takes in the reference of a class known as by. Okay, this class has the mechanism used to locate element within a document. That means it has got mechanisms which can help you find elements on the page. Document means the page. Okay, right, and it's got various mechanisms. For example, class name, CSS selector. Okay, right, ID, link text, name, partial link text, tag name, XPath. So we'll study all of these. Just be with me. Okay, just be with me. We'll study all of these. The simplest and the easiest to use are the ones which we have discussed, ID and name. Okay, so we know that for the Gmail field, okay, the ID of the field is email. Fine. So you can simply write a code over here, driver.find element by dot ID. By is a class and all these functions are static functions in this class. You don't have to create the object of this class to access these functions. Yesterday, remember I told you static can be accessed directly without creating the object, right? So everything inside by class is static. Okay, I have used by the ID email, and you get the email field. What do you want to do inside the email field? You want to type, so email dot send keys. Send keys is an internal function, right, in the web element interface, okay, which helps you to type into a text field. Fine, I'll just type hello. So when I run this code, it will open, say, Chrome. See, I identified the objects on Mozilla. Now I am running it on Chrome. It will run on Chrome because the page source remains the same. If I make this to Mozilla and run it, it will run on Mozilla, and on I also it will run. Okay, because the page source, it remains the same. It's not different. Okay. So again repeating, driver.find element will find the element. Okay, you have to give the criteria by which you want to find, and it returns you the object of web element, the object reference of web element interface. Fine.